You see, something's going to happen. Something wonderful.
My God, it's full of stars.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the NY Patriot Show. Today, actually, and I actually mean this when I say this, I have two very special guests I'm very excited to have on the show. First, I will introduce, most people probably in the Element chat and on social media might know who he is. We have Synthetic Psyop. Basically, he's a magical computer wizard. He helped design our Element chat. He is an occultist himself, and he has a plethora of information. I mean, if some people have watched my chats, I've even asked him himself his opinion and stuff in chat when I've seen him. So I'm very happy to actually get him on the show, especially since he's a fan. It's nice to have him on.
Thank you for having me.
Show some love, of course. No, thank you for coming on, my man. And like I said before, this is going to happen more often. And then we have Miguel from Aeon Byte. Highly suggest if you have not seen his stuff, please go and check it out. Guy has great content, and in my opinion, he's probably one of the better producers. And I'm going to call you a producer because you do actually do a lot of shit for your videos. I love that shit, and that takes time and effort. So I highly suggest to go check his shit out. And even though we're covering Nazis and occultism today, I highly suggest to go check out his show about Nazis and occultism with his guest, because I thought that was a banger, and I was like, yo, I got to get Miguel on. So, yeah. So, Miguel, do you want to let everybody know where they can find your stuff besides YouTube?
Yeah, I'm pretty much spread on all channels, iTunes, Spotify, any podcast provider, you'll be able to find my work. Website is thegodabovegod.com. I'm on Rockfin, Odyssey, and all these different places. Keeping myself spread out because the hammer falls. The hammer does fall.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I experienced it on Halloween. The hammer fell on my YouTube account. They were like, damn it, he's got over 1,000 followers. We got to stop him now. But yeah, I've always been very intrigued with Nazis and occultism. I mean, it's funny, I've probably studied it a lot, but just didn't retain too much, or it just seems like such a deep subject. It is something that I, would love to talk about, but I just don't find myself being the person that should really be talking about it. I don't know all that much. So I had, like I said, I thought Miguel's episode was amazing. So I have him on, and I know Synthetic Psyop, he's, into that stuff too, and he's written some notes. So I figured, why not? Let's make this happen. This is really more of an educational thing for me, probably. I hate to say it. I'll probably have the least to say out of the three of us. But I appreciate you guys coming on. The thing with I'm going to just toss this out there. I was saying this before we started recording before. My opinion, and this is why I think it's very important to be covering this. Well, two reasons. Like we were saying before, Germany may have lost World War II, but the Nazis still won. And in my opinion, when it comes down to it, I think higher up, these soldiers may not know, or they may, I don't know. But I think when it comes higher up, the whole Nazi thing, in my opinion, is magic or occultism in itself. So I just, I think this is a very interesting topic. And I think it's, another reason why I think it's very important too, is because if we don't understand what was going on then, I don't think we're going to understand what's really going on now.
For sure.
So I think it's like a topic that, even though it's old as shit, it's still something that should be talked about and maybe, poked, or, just got to check the shit out and figure out what was really going on. Because in my opinion, I think World War II, the propaganda then was probably, close to COVID. Oh, fuck, I probably shouldn't even have said that. Close to what's going on.
You're going to end up in a concentration camp tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, you're knocking on your door.
Yeah.
There's my first strike on YouTube.
Yeah. There you go.
There is a common thread I've noticed. If you look in video games and science fiction and comic books and movies, there is a common thread of Nazi occultism everything from Hellboy to Castle Wolfenstein. You can find it pretty much everywhere. It's been sort of romanticized, or maybe exploited, I guess would be a better word, in pop culture.
Yeah, yeah. What was the word you just used? Romanticized?
Yeah, there's a certain sleekness, I guess you could give to how it's portrayed in film or media in general, it
Oh
seems.
yeah. I mean, look at Indiana Jones movie.
Exactly. Exactly.
And the funny thing is too is that really what that was about was him going after an occult piece. So I mean, there again, you have Nazis and occultism together. So
Yeah.
maybe they're trying to tell us something. But what I really wanted to try to get into, and I think both of you could probably help me out with this, is more of where did the influence come from for Hitler and Himmler, the Nazi Party? I think, in my opinion, I've, like me and Synthetic Psyop were even talking before, I do think a lot of theosophy is in there. You hear about Crowley, supposedly he played both sides. I don't know, how much he could have been involved with Hitler. I know supposedly he gave Churchill the peace sign to defeat the Nazis, but then they say he also worked on both sides. But, I don't know really much about like me and Synthetic Psyop were saying before. It's like you hear that, but you're not really actually shown or told anything about what Crowley really was involved with. So who knows how truthful that is. But I do definitely think there is theosophy influence in there with Helena Blavatsky.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we have to separate two ideas. One is the boilerplate occultism of Nazism and others, which was there because 19th century there was just so much going on. Like you said, theosophy, occult revival, this weird alternative science and archaeology. There was a lot going on in the Weimar Republic. Was basically New Age central. It was astrology, nudism, vegetarianism. It was in the air. I mean, Himmler, Hitler, Rudolf Hess were basically hippies when it comes to murderous hippies. But so there was this this occult part. But the truth is that this was more Hitler didn't give a shit. He was into something far better, more powerful, which was the egregore, the complete mind control and total power. That's what he really was into. Occultism and all that was what he could utilize. There's even the story he had an astrologer, and as long as the astrologer gave him good news, he was fine. When he got bad news, he just fired the astrologer. So that's the Trump. Yeah, that's the occult part. But the other part is, again, this sort of religion of the mind where you have complete control, and that is that he really got from Marx and Lenin and Stalin. I mean, there's no doubt, even though Hitler hated the communists, he really did copy what they were doing. And what they were doing was creating a totalitarian sort of state. I mean, Marx was influenced by Hermeticism and German idealism. And then his ideas were taken by Lenin, and Lenin had this idea of Russia had the same influence in the 19th century, except it was the cosmos, and Gurdjieff, his idea that man was a machine. And Lenin believed in this idea that if man's a machine, we can create the perfect machine. All of humanity will work as a cog in this amazing, beautiful machine. Nobody will need anything. Everybody will just be part of the harmony, and this harmony will be suited for the harmony of nature and the animals. And he really thought this weirdness, again, from the influence of mysticism and occultism and Hermeticism, where everything's connected and everything's the mind. Lenin thought, well, oh my God, you need the party to guide humanity to this conclusion. Then Stalin comes. Again, we have to differentiate the difference between Stalinism, Leninism, Marx, Trotskyism. Stalin was like, fuck this. I don't need, the party is what matters. Party is the apex, the complete machine control, power for the sake of power. And Orwell wrote about this. That's what mattered. That's what Stalin won at any cost. The truth is, Stalin was into the occult. He had an advisor witch. He was into all this stuff because he knew it worked, like Hitler. But the conclusion was power. And a lot of this reminds me of two things. In the Gnostic Gospels, when the demiurge takes over the universe, or he creates the universe, he wants this perfect machine. He wants everything to be a herd, and everything he wants to rule perfectly. And humanity is just another... even though we house the divine spark, we are just part of this massive lattice, this massive matrix or machine. And it reminds me, I don't know if you guys saw Game of Thrones, but that's what the Night King wanted. I mean, even Jon Snow and those guys said he wants everybody to be a zombie. The whole world will be winter. Everybody will be equal, lifeless, walking around. It'll be a beautiful kingdom of just death. That's what Stalin wanted. And Hitler was like, whoa, this stuff works. And Hitler said, this is what I want too. It's this evil, this collective evil or power that still exists. And of course, when Hitler went down, it got worse. It didn't get better because you had Mao, you had Cambodia, you had the Ba'ath Party in the Middle East, you had just genocide. Stalin was just getting crazier. You just had genocide and murder, and this continues today. I think social media, wokeism, politically correctness is just the next step with this. So that's why I say there's two differences. There's the religion of the machine maker, or as Lenin called it, the God builder. You said, if there is no God, we will become God. We will become this hive, this divine hive that will be perfect. And then there's, of course, the occult. Let's use magic because it works, and let's, to get to our goal of power for the sake of power. So,
when you were saying that stuff before, it almost makes me think of like they're going to design their own version of Chessa that they're going to keep us in.
That's it. Yeah. In Kabbalah, there is the shadow of the dark tree of life. That's what he's probably talking about.
Yeah, because Chessa is supposed to be like, this whole wonderful like utopia. Everything's the way it's supposed to be. Everything's the same, that.
Yeah, that's it, utopia. But
yeah. Now, I wanted to your guys' opinion, both of you, if you don't mind. How much do you think Himmler was actually? Do you think that he might have been like whispering shit in Hitler's ears and kind of like almost pushing him the way, or do you think there were two totally separate things?
No, I think it's pretty well documented that Hitler really did not like his Germanic romanticism.
Right.
In fact, he was very vocal about it, but Himmler, he let him have his toys, and because he thought it was just over the top. So he did not like it. The Volkism was something that worked at the beginning, but Hitler was trying to fry bigger fish, and Himmler was just, there was one thing I was reading. Himmler, again, he was just this, when he got out of college, his job was like mating plants. I mean, but then he started getting into occultism, anti-Semitism, futurism, and he just like this, the power went to him. But part of this was being that Weimar Republic hippie, eat, kind of Whole Foods mentality and New Age kind of stuff. And he would even send people to concentration camps and give them instructions on how to grow their own organic herbs. Because he was like, if they can save themselves with this holistic stuff, then it's worth, the land has decided. So he was he was pretty off, but I don't think Hitler really, it's documented that Hitler was not keen on his weird magic user ways.
I would agree. I'd say I don't really subscribe to the theory that Hitler was some occult genius. Himmler wanted to kind of show this sort of glorious Germanic history, everything from Norse mythology to the Teutonic Order, and create some sort of amalgamation or entire mythos around an arc of Aryan history. Himmler had a strange obsession with King Arthur as well, and that can be seen in Wewelsburg Castle. But Himmler did keep an occultist very close at hand, a guy named Karl Marie Williget, and Williget ended up on the personal staff of Himmler. According to Williget, German culture and history dates back to 228 BC. He proposed that at that time there were 3 suns. Earth was inhabited by giants, dwarves, and all these other mystical creatures.
Conspiracy theorists today.
No kidding.
I was just thinking that.
Let's do some Tartarian.
Yeah. And Williget claimed that his ancestors ended the long period of war in the time by 1200 BC, and that he could communicate with his ancestors with channeling and divination. He wrote books. He created his own runic alphabet. In 24, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and megalomania, and he was declared legally incompetent by the courts. And he remained in a Salzburg asylum where he remained, I think, until 27. So Himmler, I think, was more of the mystic.
That's
Hitler, I don't believe so as much.
Yeah, and Himmler had Otto Rahn, who was
Yes,
he was a closeted gay guy, so he was full of guilt, but he was still not part of the party, and he was the one that was looking for the Holy Grail and was visiting the Cathars in France and was looking for all these secrets. Eventually, Himmler, I think there were Himmler's little pets. And he put him in a concentration camp to tough him up and kind of abused him. And eventually Otto Rahn, killed himself. So there was a lot of this weirdness with Himmler.
Yes,
Oh,
very.
That's that's why I asked that question, because I honestly thought that Himmler seemed to be more of the occultist than Hitler, actually. That's what I
Very
had.
much so.
That's what I got.
Very much so.
I think. So now, and if people don't know this, I mean, if you go looking through, I guess, documentaries and stuff, you can find, or I've seen, where you will see video footage from back then of literally people with torches making swastikas, choreographed shit, people going down the street with pagan gods and stuff. Do you think that was more of Himmler's thing, actually? Do you think that
I
was
do.
Yeah.
I think it was probably a collective. I mean, they knew you've got to create these. Again, they called it God building. We call it egregores today. You needed these rituals and symbols to create this psychic entity and envelop the population and get everybody again in sort of this collective mind, this mob, this machine, and these rituals worked. I mean, whether you think they're just marketing, advertising, but again, the Bolsheviks had them. They had their rituals, their language, their symbolism. So they knew this was very important to bring this stuff, whether you believed in it or not. Some certainly did. Some thought it was just good marketing. I mean, Goebbels he stole Edward Bernays' ideas on the unconscious, manipulating the unconscious and all that, and used them for his marketing on the German people. And Bernays was very crushed because he used it for genocide and other things. But fuck Bernays, he was an evil man himself for all the stuff he did to the American people. So,
what do you think about all the symbolism that they use, though? All the occult symbols and stuff, the swastika? I mean, was that you think Hitler understood the power behind that stuff? Or do you think that was
behind he was behind the swastika. He was personally, so he knew. But
and real quick, I actually meant to ask you this before I even mentioned that. Real quick, just in case my listeners don't know, to you, what do you think an egregore is? I mean, to me, I think it's when you get a group of people kind of having the same thought and creating the same idea. But your opinion, if you don't mind.
Well, an egregore, an example of the famous egregore is the tulpa, where a thought form can create with the psychic energy of people and it becomes semi-independent. So all tulpas are egregores, but an egregore is more of the psychic power and collection of people that want a goal that sometimes can be semi-independent, quasi-sentient, and so forth. And it goes from different. I think Mark Stavish has his great book, Egregores, and he says, for example, the Coca-Cola or Apple computer is an egregore. I mean, these people, you talk to them and you're like, are you alive? Are you a shell? Because Apple, something is completely changed in their programming. But then there are those where this egregore, where people can actually get this being to go and attack others. So it's this sort of semi-conscious entity that draws from our electromagnetic or spiritual powers that we give as a group, and both influences the group and becomes the climax of this group.
Nice. And I like how you mentioned Mark Stavish. I had some of his books. He has some great stuff. I highly suggest to people listening, Between the Gates. I used that book. I thought it was a good book. And, you know, the reason I had asked you about the egregore stuff, well, one, in case somebody was like, I don't have to worry about answering a message now when somebody hits me up and asks me what an egregore is. And two, I did want to bring that up because I wondered, like, your both of your opinions. I guess kind of like during the whole George Floyd thing or around that time, I kind of feel like all those riots and all that shit going on, that's an egregore at work.
And that was a religion. That was a bona fide religion, I feel. I'm not criticizing, say it's bad. I think secularism and scientism has left such a void. And we as human beings are wired for the mystical experience. And there's such a void, I think, when the George Floyd thing happened. People were so starving, especially younger people, they just created both an egregore and a mystical religion. I mean, people were having visions of George Floyd and worshiping, and then you had white people bowing down in shame by the thousands. I mean, it was definitely a mystical religion and an egregore that was created because people are starving for this stuff, as I say. I mean, and again, people like Hitler and others and Lenin will exploit this. They will exploit it.
We could even say that, you know, Make America Great Again and Q could be an egregore on the other side as well. I can actually draw a lot of parallels between the past, what we're talking about today, and that whole America First, QAnon, and it's. I think of an egregore, it could either be like a sigil or sort of like a hive mind, like an idea on Twitter, anywhere in between that spectrum, really.
Bingo. Yeah, I would agree, and it's neither good nor bad. Again, it just is.
Sure.
I've even had I've read I think an explanation of an egregore, or maybe it was because I was reading a book on servitors, but like they were kind of like saying that an egregore could be like a gigantic version of a servitor, which is really kind of like an idea of something that you created that you want to do something for you, you know. So I think that's what we experienced with all that bullshit 2 years ago, you know. And I wonder, like, sorry, go ahead, Synthetic.
I was just going to say, don't forget to feed your servitors.
Yeah, here's the definition from Mark Stavish. I just pulled it out. It goes, it's an occult, autonomous psychic entity composed of and influencing the thoughts of a group of people. And then there's an older definition, a home or conduit for a specific psychic intelligence of a non-human nature, connecting the invisible dimensions with the material world in which we live. But I think the newer one makes sense, and I think that's for those of us in the esoteric conspiracy, or called egregore, it explains a lot and connects a lot of dots and help us understand how the Nazis or the Bolsheviks or Mao or like you said, QAnon or BLM can work. So personally, I try to stay away from egregores.
Definitely.
And I think they work really well with social media.
Yeah.
I think that's really the only way. I think that is a vehicle to make those things become, you know, bigger or actually work. Because, you know, before we had this stuff, I couldn't know what some dude in India was thinking.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now I got all these options of seeing other people's ideas and theories, and then I take them in, and does that sound good? Yeah, it does. You know, I'll run with it. You know, so yeah.
But I mean, if you go to, let's say, on your neck of the woods, you go see a Giants or a Jets game, you're going to get it's an egregore. It's a temporary one, and hopefully it just ends. But you know, you feel this energy. It's like a friend of mine, when he was out there in a big protest for the Iraq War, Gary Lockman, and it's thousands of people, like you were, you know, they're on the streets, but you'd be in a stadium, and you see, you know, back in the days when they did the stupid wave, and he sees the wave, and he's like, I am not doing that nonsense. I'm too mature. I'm too old. And boom, when it came to his time, he did the wave, and he's like, that was an aggregate. It grabs you, just like when you're in a game and you lose who you are and you're part of the collective, and you can feel the energy crackling in the air, you know?
Yeah, like a Yankees and Red Sox game.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
That's an aggregate.
That's a big one. And that goes beyond the game. That's
why I said that.
Population forever. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I said that, because you'll see, like, even after the game's over, you'll see the crazy fans on the TV and in the news. Like, it's still going on after the game.
Yeah, or soccer hooligans or something.
You know what's funny? You mentioned soccer, and this still goes along with occultism. When I had mentioned something to you about Azov, they actually, according to what they say, they were using soccer teams to actually recruit people for Azov. And they even used what are they called? People like you had mentioned, this stuff like doing the waves in the stands. I can't remember. There's a specific name for these people, but like, in other countries with soccer, I mean, they get, like you said, fanatics and egregore, they're ultras. That's what they're called. I'm sorry. They're called ultras. And they're like these, it could be a group of like 50 people in the stands that it's like, they all do something at once. It's, this whole like wild thing that they all collectively do. Azov even said they were like, recruiting those people.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen, the Wall movie, that scene where he becomes like Hitler, and all of a sudden everybody's doing the same motion and everybody has like no face. It's like you lose your individuality and suddenly everybody's part of the party, part of the movement. So it's.
But the weird thing I had, and this was what I was going to get to also, where I think that, Nazis sometimes is actually kind of just like magic in itself, is that I was like, well, why would they want ultras? People that are like, fanatics with like doing stuff at like sporting events. I'm actually wondering, like, are you kind of recruiting those people so they can do shit out in the streets and then film it and then say this is what's happening? Because like why would Azov, who has Nazi symbolism, they have the Panzer 19th Division symbol practically on their shit. They admit to a part of them actually being Nazis. Like, why are those people sending MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News footage of what's going on in Ukraine? Why are Nazis the ones giving us the idea of what's going on over there? Because it's probably magic and propaganda.
Yeah, it's probably a form of communication to other neo-Nazis.
I thought that is myself too, yeah.
Oh yeah, this stuff, in some way it's enticing, especially if you have a void. And people, as much as they talk about, Nazis and fascisms, you do forget. I mean, for example, somebody like Genghis Khan, who was 100 times worse than Hitler, we see him now historically as this brave, cool conqueror. So it wouldn't be surprising there are people who see that now. And
100 years from now, maybe the idea of Hitler will change too. Who knows?
Yeah, it will. It would just be
probably.
It would just be a cool dressed guy or something.
A guy with a funny mustache. That's all he was.
Yeah.
To your point about why with Azov, to me it just stinks of a creation of an intelligence apparatus of some sort. That's what my theory is. It just stinks as a creation.
Yeah, no, that's what I think, honestly, with Azov. Yeah.
Didn't John McCain take pictures with them and all that years ago?
Oh, did he? I have no idea.
I don't know.
I think so. I think he did. There are pictures, or there was some resistance in the Ukraine, but
and then again, if you think about it, their flag. I know they have two colors, but they have that chesed blue in there, and it goes with that whole Nazi utopia thing again. I don't.
Yeah.
Just throwing stuff out there. But Synthetic, I know you said you had actually like a bunch of notes too and stuff that you had wrote. Like I would like for you to be able to get to them and not like you wrote them down.
Just a quick thing I've pulled together on just some symbols. One being that we've all seen it. It's an eagle clutching a swastika. It's called a Reichsadler. And that is actually an old Roman symbol, the eagle. And to the Romans, that represented Jupiter. It went from Rome and basically to the Americas, and I believe that the Nazis kind of copied it. Another one would be the SS Bolt. It's 2 Sig runes, and it symbolizes victory or a lightning flash. This all ties into the idea of a blitzkrieg attack or lightning war, and lightning and electricity. Where that ties into the occult is pretty obvious. The SS also adopted the Death's Head or Totenkopf. That just goes back to Old Prussia. It goes on back to Frederick the Great even. And it's interesting how that symbol of a skull has sort of traveled through time. Jolly Roger flags all the way to Blue Lives Matter logos and Masonic stuff with Hiram Abiff. It's pretty much everywhere now. Late in the war, there was something the Nazis did. I think it was in 1944. It was called Operation Werewolf and Radio Werewolf, where basically they'd fight in plain clothes, so you could be behind enemy lines, and they'd think that they were just civilians. And Radio Werewolf was the war was basically coming to an end, and they knew they could do nothing. So Radio Werewolf was propaganda campaigns that were done in order to try and turn civilians to sabotage things of the Allied powers. And their logo was also the symbol you're talking about, I believe, is called the Wolf's Angle. It looks sort of like a backwards N with a line through it. Yes. And that actually goes back to the 13th rune. It's the division of life and death. Another interesting symbol, it's an old Saxony symbol. It's called Irmisol. And I find this very interesting because when you start reading about Nazi occultism, you'll find that they believe, or some of the true believers, if you will, believed in the theory of a hollow earth. So I believe that's why they were going to Antarctica. There's a lot to be said about the group was called the SS Ahnenerbe. They were doing a lot of the more mystical research, but that old symbol, that the Irmisol, it reminds me of the plus ultra symbol used by the Spanish, which was Hercules' pillars, the 2 pillars that hold up the sky. So I'm wondering if there was a belief that there's some sort of pillar in Antarctica, hollow earth, or some sort of transport. It's hard to say. There's so much that's disinformation, I think, with aliens and, Hitler being possessed by a demon and Nazi flying saucers and time travel and quest for the Holy Grail and Vril. And it's hard to know what's actually historic, but I do think there is something to be said about these Nazis believing in a hollow earth.
The Vril too, remember? Yeah, not only are they underground, but the Vril had powers. Their power was all electrical.
Yes.
Lightning. So I think lightning became a big symbol for occultists and for people in secret societies. It's interesting on a side note about the SS and the thing. Remember when Kiss came out with their logo in the 70s? It was done by Ace Frehley. They got in hot water because the 2 S's looked like the Nazi symbols.
The Sig runes, yeah.
Yeah, so of course, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley had to come out and press like, hey, we're Jews. So that was interesting too. And the other thing about the skull too is that I like how you mentioned about the eagle, because whenever you have a powerful movement, you're going to find either these 3 gods, either Jupiter or Jupiter Amun-Ra, Jupiter Ra. You're going to find Saturn, or you're going to find Mithras.
Yes.
Now, you got Jupiter right there. Now, most people don't realize, and this is the work of Jason Reza Jojani in his great book, Iranian Leviathan. He says that the skull and bones, the Jolly Rancher, was actually done thousands of years ago by I think the Sarmatian Persians. There were these pirates that, of course, all these movements are always mafia. They were both, they attack Romans, but they're also in cahoots with the Roman. You know how commerce is. We're at war, we fight, but we still going to do commerce. And they had the symbol. Their symbol was the skull and the 2 bones, and they were advocates of Mithras, and they were these cross-dressing, bisexual, wild, mystic pirates who were like the scourge of Rome. So that is never going to be. So there's the other surprise. If you want power, look for Mithras, look for Jupiter, and look for Saturn somewhere in the background. You're going to find them. I mean, Skull and Bones, I bet they worship Mithras up there in Yale, no doubt.
Probably.
It's really interesting that you said that, because like, again, prior, when me and Synthetic were talking before you came on, he had mentioned something about the eagle being a representation for Jupiter. And I was like, well, that's more Chesed, in my opinion. Again, going back to Chesed and Jupiter, it's just more symbolization of that. I do think Chesed, Jupiter, and Saturn is huge with that stuff. I think you nailed it with that, Miguel. For real. Miguel, I wanted to know, and I'm glad that Synthetic brought it up. What's your idea about Antarctica? Like, what was the reason for that?
There's something there. I don't know what it is, but something is so suspicious because, again, the interest has been so big from all these sources and the hiding. I mean, I don't even want to say there's so many possibilities. I don't know.
Do you prescribe to the dome idea, Miguel?
The dome idea?
Well, do you believe that we might be under the dome?
I'm agnostic right now. I know the more I researched, I know the conventional story is bullshit.
Okay.
And it's just terrible, but I'm still not there on any sort of argument or theory. But we're going to be very surprised. We're very surprised. So.
No, I just had often wondered, like, I think I've said this before, like, I may not be totally right or correct about this, but, my opinion, like, if you go up high enough on a mountain, you're going to start hitting snow and ice. And you start going to the opposite ends of the world, you're going to start hitting snow and ice. So I had just wondered, like, is that part of maybe reaching the edge of the dome? If there is one. So I had wondered, like, maybe did the Nazis, like, were they trying to, like, dig out of it or go through it or some shit? But like you said, there's so many wondering what's up with Antarctica. I don't know. Yeah. I just wanted your opinion.
I mean, these days, I don't even think the moon is the moon. Pretty much.
I don't either.
I'm just like, it's something, whatever that they told us, it's something else. I don't know if it's a base, a creature. I don't know. It's probably not from this world, this earth, but at least I'm honest enough after doing so much research saying. And of course, they don't, the powers that be don't help themselves. What they call NASA, never a straight answer. And I mean, if the government would actually give us some straight answers instead of putting their foot in their mouth and their half lies and half truths, which are so blatant. I mean, only somebody who's hiding something would be that slippery, and it's just enough. Don't buy it.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned the moon, man. Not to get
that rocket that's supposed to go back to the moon, hasn't it like broken down every time? I mean, how can we not go back to the moon after 40, 50 years? Makes no sense at all, unless something's off.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because like it was funny how like we ended up like totally on left field, but when we covered the Skinwalker series, the Skinwalker Ranch, when we started talking about Bigelow, he is selling for, I think it was like $52 million. He uses Elon Musk's rockets, but he builds the shuttles that you're going to go in. That's supposedly for $52 million. You can buy this and you can go to Mars and stay there for like, I think 90 days. Well, we can't go back to the moon, but yet Bigelow selling shit for $52 million. That's going to take us to Mars.
Yeah, we supposedly went through this shitty technology, and no country, all these rich countries, even back to the Soviet Union, China, India, us, nobody wants to go back to the moon. Never understood that one.
Yeah. Or maybe we never went. I don't know.
Well, something's off. That's all I can say.
Who's that guy? What's his name? Buzz Aldrin. I think he had an interview with somebody. Or no, a girl in school had asked this question. And like, how come we haven't gone back? And I think his answer was like, kind of like, who's to say we actually went there? I was like, okay. Because he always says crazy shit. But basically, that was his answer. He was like, well, I mean, who said we actually went? And I was like, oh, damn. Well, that actually would make more sense if we never really did. you know. But not to get too far off the topic. Synthetic. What
Hey,
was?
you watch the movie Iron Sky. It is about Nazis in the moon. I love that movie.
That
It's
is an entertaining film. I find it interesting that when we do send astronauts to like the International Space Station, we have to hitch a ride from the Russians. So what's going to happen now that we're on the brink of World War III?
Oh wow, that's interesting. Well, thankfully, supposedly Robert Bigelow is attached to the International Space Station, so maybe he'll save us or help us out. Fuck knows.
Well, go watch Iron Sky tonight. You'll love it. It's the
Yeah, I'll have to
goofiest,
check
most
that out.
fun
It's funny. It's very funny.
And what's your thoughts on Antarctica, Synthetic?
That's a good question. There's obviously something there. There's plenty of writing about a hidden mountain, if you want to get really esoteric, that can only be seen with certain lighting. There's obviously something that they're trying to keep secret, but what that is, I really don't know.
Yeah, it's an honest answer. Yeah, I don't. That's why I asked you guys.
One of the few things our governments in this world have done right is keep us away from the Antarctica. So.
Well, that was, I think, another thing. Oh God. I mean, I'm going to use Flat Earth Dave, unfortunately, as from what he had told me when he came on my show. I don't know how truthful it is, but he was telling me even parts of Antarctica, like, like when you see like people going there or whatever, there's actually a very small spot that, like, if you wanted to go to Antarctica or whatever, you can't actually go to all of it. I don't know how truthful that is, but if that is truthful, that's even fucking weirder. I don't know. Because he was going on saying that, that's part of the flat earth thing, whatever. But again, something with Antarctica is very fucking weird. So, and, and what I was saying before, I do think, again, with the symbolism, I do think a lot of it, like what you said, does go back to Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn, I think, might be kind of more of the death idea, and maybe Jupiter, I think, is more of the energy of the power. And I think you do see a lot of that in Nazi symbolism. Now, I did want to ask, because we had brought it up a few times, and I heard Synthetic Psyop saying this is a little bit off the topic, but what do you think, Miguel, about electricity and magic, actually?
Good question. Good question. I mean, I just did a show on Twin Peaks and watched some of the things. And David Lynch and Mark Frost are obsessed with electricity. They're all flying through the houses and in lines, and David Bowie's appearing with electricity. So they're definitely riffing off this idea of the real 19th century when, and people say, well, it was the 19th century. We were starting, it was a great thing that the Industrial Revolution was giving us, and it was changing the world. But it certainly has a place in occultism too. And you see it over and over again. So, sometimes a lot of it is just whether you believe in it. And again, if it transforms into a symbol, then it has magic and power in itself. We're talking about, again, the SS uniforms, the band Kiss. It takes on a life of its own. And all you need is to keep these symbols and rituals and ideas going for whatever you want to do.
The power of aesthetics.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that you mentioned Twin Peaks. Like, even at the end of every episode, when it shows like David Lynch and Mark Frost, what is it? It's like electrical lines and fucking showing electric bolts coming out. They're always focusing on light poles. There's always a truck going down the road with the fucking, like, basically the wood for the light poles.
Or the lights are always kind of buzzing, going, is it going to go out? Is it going to go out? So yeah, they were tapping into 20th, 19th century occultism with their.
So, okay, yeah, we got our audio stuff fixed. I guess, what I was getting at, basically, we mentioned the SS and the lightning. So I had just wondered about, like, what your guys' idea was, or with electricity and magic. I seem to think that there's something there, in my opinion. I think a lot of magic comes down to just basically magnetism and electric. But that's getting a little bit out there and, like, pretty deep. But I think you can break magic down to that, actually. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Synthetic, did you happen to have anything else that you had to cover?
One thing I did want to cover, after the First World War, Germany was pretty much blamed for everything and in shambles. And what I think, to try and separate fact from fiction. I think one thing that did happen there was uncertain future, hyperstagflation, poor economic conditions, skyrocketing unemployment. People kind of went into sort of fantasy land. And I think that's where you had a start of all this. There was a group called the Thule Society, or Thule, Thule Gesellschaft, I believe. And it started out as sort of a study group around Germanic antiquity. But the connection between them, they somehow sponsored the DAP, which is the sort of basically like the German Labor Party. And the Thule Society was a secret society, and that was what the Nazi Party was born out of. Later, Hitler reorganized the DAP into the NSDP, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. So literally the entire Nazi beginnings are coming from a secret society of sorts. So that's something I think that is very important in Nazi occultism. It was born out of a secret society, and then later on they're getting rid of Freemasons and gypsies and occultists, astrologers, things like that. And I can kind of draw parallels with kind of the current state in the United States now, with sort of economic downturn and sort of uncertain futures, where people are kind of going into fantasy land on both sides of the political aisle.
Yeah, I was actually going to eventually bring that up. I said, thank God you're here. Or just we would have been done already, and Miguel would have been like, I'm done talking, dude. The thing with what do you think is the reasoning why? Like, I did find that very interesting, and I often wondered if it was, well, one, if it was even true, but two, like, was it pretty much so people who might understand what's really going on can't say anything or say much? But like, what was up with like kind of like going after the Freemasons and occultists? Like, you think there was like something behind that actually?
Well, when you're trying to control everything and create a total environment, you want to get rid of anything that could potentially be conspiring against you or any sort of opposition. I think it's as plain as that. If you're trying to tell people what to do, you don't want them getting together and talking and, maybe.
Yeah, it's not the first time. Remember, was it the 18th century? Germany banned secret societies, and that's how the Illuminati either died or went underground. So yeah, it's not that rare. Yeah. If you want to consolidate power, you got to get rid of the secret societies, journalists, college professors. That's all part of the formula.
Absolutely.
You think it might part of the reason might be also like again, like talking about the Nazis, I just think it's a very like an occult thing in itself. You're not going to want somebody else pointing that out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And other occultists might be like, wait, I know what the fuck's going on. No, you know what I'm saying? So I had wondered, like, is that part of the reason why is because they didn't want people who understood or could see what was really going on saying something? Or maybe it's just as much as like you even said, synthetic, just as simple as that. What you said.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It is hard to say, but yeah, you want to consolidate power. You want to make your will on the other people. You want to get rid of any sort of groups that might be meeting in secret or have ideas opposed to the main thing. And this does go back to kind of an occult idea. The Nazis were very obsessed with the purity of German blood or what have you, and there's always a good fascination with blood in any sort of occult ideology or religions, things like that. And I've met my fair share of dummies who are occultists, and they believe that they have a special power because they have some sort of blood type, Rh negative. It usually is. So there's always sort of in woo-woo world, there's an obsession with blood or something along those lines. So I think it kind of fits right in here. Like the Nazis were no different because they were aiming for their ideas were centered around the purity of the blood of the people.
And they were a secret society themselves. Yeah, we have to not forget about 10% of the population was part of the Nazi party. I mean,
yes.
Most Germans were just normal. Same with the Bolsheviks. Only a small percentage were part of the party too. So they had their own rituals and language and everything else. So they wanted to make sure they had a monopoly on magic, secret societies, all the stuff that can really help liberate the human soul. We also don't want to forget about Dietrich Eckhart, who was basically met Hitler and basically helped him create the myth of Hitler. You know, he was the one who shaped Hitler into what he would be, at least his image and all that, to the outer world. And it's interesting because, the Nazis seemed to be more traditionalists or perennialists. They were always looking to this beautiful golden age, this Eden where things were better. You see that over again. Make America Great is sort of like
I was
that.
thinking that actually.
There was a better idyllic time, and we can get back to it. But the Bolsheviks were different, and I think Mao was different. They were like, there is no past. They were going to erase destroy the statues, destroy the history books. It's all about the future where we're going to have this heaven where nobody, you'll own nothing and like it. That's basically the future they want for us. So it's interesting, this dichotomy of that the Nazis had, and so did the Bolsheviks. Although, let's say they hadn't been defeated, I think the Nazis would have evolved more to that. Let's destroy the past, wipe it out, and let's turn more into this collective machine.
That almost makes me think about kind of like, I mean, I could be totally off, but like, as you're saying that, like, I just kept on thinking about the Great Awakening. I'm like, is this something that's been played to us plenty of times and just isn't working and it's just a joke? You know what I'm saying? Like, it almost sounds a little bit like that.
The Great Awakening?
Yeah. I mean, with like the QAnon people, this is the Great Awakening that we're going through.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And like, I think it's just a bunch of bullshit that being fed. I don't know. It's just like,
I mean, the good thing about QAnon is they did a lot of good research and they gathered a lot of data, no doubt. And at the end of the day, you can go back to the egregore, but QAnon is just a bunch of franchises working independently. Now, how strong is the egregore? Well, we can argue that, but it's nothing like, the Bolsheviks or the Nazis in that way.
And then I did want to ask both of you if you thought there was anything behind because it's good that you brought up the whole blood thing, and who knows about that. But do you think there was something with the whole blue eyes and white skin? Because in my opinion, like we were talking about, this may sound crazy, but we were talking again about Jupiter, constant Jupiter symbolism. Now I think the right pillar is a little bit more of kind of raw, explosive energy. Now, a white person with blue eyes would be the right pillar and Chesed and Jupiter again. So was that kind of like, you think that might have been a representation or no? Like, I'm just fucking crazy.
I never thought of that. That's interesting.
Sorry.
Yeah, because there's so much weird, bogus science. And you look at Hitler was like, I need a system. And obviously Marxism gave the system where there is this struggle, class struggle, tension, and the universe is unfair, and we got to fight them so that people can be equal. Hitler just switched out from a class warfare to a race warfare. But in both, they're not really logical because the whole race thing makes no sense when you really think about what's a race, and so, but he was able to eventually. The idea of what really was an Aryan was completely logical, but at least he was able to create a boogeyman, which was, the Jews, the Romani, secret societies. He was able to create what you need, which is a bad guy, an archon, somewhere you can put all your shadow and anger, and this is who we need to defeat for complete peace and prosperity. So
it was the WWF before it got big. Hulk Hogan needed a bad guy.
You need a Bond villain, you need an archon, and that's the point of these movements. So
now, and then I guess we'll talk about this, and then we'll end it here. Both of you, opinion. We had mentioned before, the Nazi Germany lost the war, but the Nazis won. In your opinion, do you still think that shit is like kind of pulling the strings and running the show in a sense?
It would have to be. I mean, again, look at these movements today. They have that same resonance. They have the same playbook, everything. And I think we were talking before, this whole divide and conquer thing, it's coming from the top. And again, you'll own nothing and like it, digital dot, all that stuff that's coming down the pipe. It's straight out of this collective Marxist Nazi kind of formula that works really well. I mean, those in power do very well, whether it's communist China or Bolshevik Russia and all that. So nothing has really changed. I think one warning before we end, I wanted to give too, which is important. Speaking of the magic of the mind, is the idea of Hannah Arendt's banality of evil, because she deduced very well when she was watching the trials of Adolf Eichmann. She was watching the trial after he was captured, and she was like, this guy does not look like Sauron or Count Dracula or Genghis Khan. He's just some very nice, mild-mannered, intelligent geek. And she realized, and you look at Himmler too, he was, again, his job was in agriculture, or Rudolf Hess. There were just these geeks, these hippie geeks. She realized evil doesn't come in the form, the true evil. It comes in the bean counter, the accountant, the guy who says mathematically, if we do this and this, we will reach utopia, the eugenicist or the technocrat. So true evil really is more closer to your Silicon Valley geek or your accountant. The guy says, we got to crunch these numbers for the good of everybody. And, few eggs get broken, but mathematically we're going to be fine. So she said that's the evil you have to watch out for. And I think that's something people still miss today. You're looking for Trump or some bombastic big guy, and no, it's the bean counter behind the scenes. That's the one that's Charles Schwab or one of the. That's the one you have to worry about. And even Charles Schwab is probably just he's a buffoon. There's others behind him you got to worry about.
Yeah, I was actually going to use George Soros as an example, but say like, who's to say, like, even for all you know, he's just a face and a name to blame something on. But if you go by his interviews, like, he'll say like, I don't worry or have feelings towards the outcome. This is what you want to pay me to do, and this is what you want to happen. I do my numbers, and this is what you get. Like, you totally disassociate yourself.
If we kill 5 million people and bring our population down and nobody eats meat, then America will be safe. That, completely logical, cold, and that's the one you have to worry about.
Yes.
Like the architect in the Matrix, he's not good or evil. He just has a world to run. Simple as that.
It's Abraxas.
Yeah. It's just got something to do.
I like how you said that. The architect in the Matrix is just got very well said. Do you think I don't want to make it sound like a gloom and doom, but I mean, do you think, going forward, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, do you think like it's going to, like, whatever's still going on, you think it's actually going to work? It's hard to ask what I'm trying to get at. I mean, I think you understand what I'm getting at. I mean, do you think this, if we're talking about Nazis and the occultism and all that stuff that worked back then and it's still working now, do you think it's going to just keep working going forward? Or do you think there's hope and may actually stop?
I would say we should get rid of the word hope. Hope is bad. Let's use imagination. But I think it's working, but it's not working. What's the old Persian saying, Zoroastrian saying, evil always turns stupid. The playbook stops to work. It's not as good when Lenin was doing it or Mao was doing it or Himmler was doing it. So evil gets stupid, it gets greedy, and I think it's been exposing itself too. Also, I think on a high level Jungian Gnostic way, the trickster archetype has sort of come in to fight these other gods. And of course, this manifests as Trump, the pandemic, Elon Musk, these disruptors who may not be good, but they keep kind of breaking or stopping the plans of, again, turning us into this machine, this God building, which is the end game of these people, because that way they have complete power, this addictive power, and they can think of themselves as God. So I think if we keep playing with the trickster archetype, we can stop the flow of Jupiter, Saturn, and Mithras. So hopefully that's something that will continue.
As well said. And you, synthetic psyop.
To your first question, I think if you look at it from a historical perspective, where end of World War II, you had the Vatican rat lines where they're sending these high-level Nazis to all over South America. You've got Project Paperclip, where the best and brightest scientists of the day came here. Some of them went to Russia. Everything that we kind of have now came out of World War II, technology-wise. I'm an IT guy by trade, so I think of it that way. It all started with IBM computers, and now we have computers in our pocket. I don't think that system has really changed. If you go back to the beginning of the Second World War, they had to take Prescott Bush and plenty of other Americans, blue bloods, if you will, and charge them with the Trading with the Enemies Act. So that old money, those blue bloods, I think they're quite in line with those philosophies. And on the left, you have the other side of the pendulum. So I don't think it's going to change. I think the pendulum has to swing both ways, and there's always people trying to enforce their will and bring in a new system. And will it work? Will it not work? I don't think we can go back in time. I don't think we can go back to how America was, in the same way that Germany could not pull their favorite parts from the past and make an amalgamation and bring that forward into the future. Can't stop the march of time, and nobody knows.
Yeah, or Italy or any of those places.
Yes.
Because fascism didn't just come out of thin air, just like Nazism didn't come out of thin air, but it was a reaction against the Bolsheviks, the bankers destroying the economy with the Great Depression, so the First World War. So it was a system that was a reaction to some horrors in the universe. And then Hitler, of course, he had a vision and the magic and the people to make it happen. I mean, I know, talking to people in my circle, I think the game over, or where you can say we're not conspiracy theorists, we're just spoiler alerts people, as Jimmy Dore says, is the digital dollar. That's the great reset. That's when they can both cover their tracks for destroying our economy, and they can finally control us 100% with money. So that's what I hear the end game is. So we'll find out. If we're getting closer, we need to push back. Simple as that.
I think, and then that's very well said. I totally 100% agree with you, Miguel. I think if they really started to push and roll out this whole digital currency, I think at that point, that is when it's like, all right, we need to, something needs to change, because now we are getting to the point.
The Nazis have won again.
The Nazis and electric, because now it's not actually.
Yeah.
I think the way. Okay, make one point. I do think that the whole crypto and digital currency is just maybe one part of the system they're erecting, where you'll have an AI, the code will be the law and governance, and crypto is how they track you at every step of the way and tax you every step of the way, every action you do.
Yeah.
But yes,
remember the banality of evil. Hey, it's just the algorithm. Hey, we're just counting beans. We're not doing anything. So.
Exactly.
No, I've even said that to my wife before. I was like, what's funny? I was like, do people realize that with an Easy Pass you can be tracked?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a digital way to pay for something, but I'm sure they're tracking you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I really want to thank you guys for coming on. Unfortunately, I'm going to admit it. This was probably one of the worst hosting I have ever done, because it was on a topic that I really didn't know much about.
You did great.
I really appreciate you guys.
The job of the host, ask questions, and we all learn something new.
Yeah, like for real, this really was an episode for me, because I wanted to learn from you guys, really. And I think it's a very interesting topic. But I really want to thank you guys, because like I said to Eric Pryor, I said, unfortunately, I'm probably not. No, shit, sorry.
That's fine.
He's been doxxed. That's it.
My name's Nick. All right, so we'll make things easy. All right. Yeah, it was really, I was telling him, I said, unfortunately, it's going to be you and Miguel talking the most, because I really don't, I'm fascinated by it, but I don't know much. And I thank you guys for coming on. And
Well,
we're
you know, far more than 99% of the population goes throwing around the word fascist and Nazi. They've made it worse. They have given the real Nazis so much more power with all this
Yeah.
stupidity. It's terrible. They don't understand what they've done.
They can run off with all the money and power, and people are doing this, you know.
That's exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. As I'm worried about the elections right now, like it makes a fucking difference.
No, I mean it's good to enjoy some Schadenfreude and watch some side or another have some meltdowns and talk about the apocalypse but it's all a show. It's all a show.
Yeah.
That's what I think. And that's a great way to end it. It's all a show. Again, I thank you guys so much for coming on. Synthetic, I know you don't have a show. Is there like anything you wanted to promote or put out?
You can find me in the live chat of both Aeon Byte and the Occult Rejects on my Patriot show. I'm usually there. Come hang out with us. Come chat with us. I love both shows very much. So this was a real pleasure to be on with both of you guys. Also, the Tor and More Community Element server is where you can find me. Miguel, you guys have a Discord, I believe, right?
Yeah. You guys can come on anytime. Just let me know.
Great.
Banned so many times. I don't even want to make another Discord account.
Yeah, I know. It's like there's not enough time.
It's like, yo, how many emails am I going to make just so I can join Discord? Like, come on. And then the problem is, too, with these emails, so many of them, they want some kind of verification. I'm like, well, I don't want to do that either. I don't want to give you my fucking number again. Yeah. Like, it makes a difference. You probably already know who I am. But yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Synthetic. Definitely, you can find him on our live chats. Definitely check out our Element server. I know I've been slacking on that. I tried to push it today when I recorded with Lux. Definitely check it out. We're not the only show in there. There's other people. Honestly, you're going to go there and you're going to find a fuck ton of information from everybody except for me and Lux. I'll be totally honest. Yeah. It is a great community. There's awesome people in there, and everybody gets along too.
Pretty much. So
it's really nice community. So definitely check.
Happy egregore.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck no.
It is
Synthetic. You created such a great.
Yeah, I try.
He's a magician. I said it.
Technomancer, I guess.
Yeah.
Miguel, would you like to, if the people listening don't know who you are by now, please let them know who you are and where to find you.
Yeah, just thegodabovegod.com or just type in Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio, AEON, Byte, BYTE, and you'll see my stuff, whether it's YouTube, my homepage, whatever. So
definitely, yeah. Thank you. And definitely go check his stuff out. I highly suggest it. Not that I'm fanboying you or trying to gas your head up, Miguel, but I think you do a great job. And like I said before, I appreciate the extra visual shit you do. That takes time. And to me, that shows passion, because who's going to spend time doing that shit unless you really like it? So I see passion in his show. Go fucking check it out.
No, thanks. My CIA handler will be very happy.
You'll tell him, Paul?
Yeah, he's gonna give me a star. Yeah, or a swastika, a new swastika.
Oh man!
You're gonna get banned from everywhere, man.
Yeah. Tell him I'll take some Bitcoin in payment. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so that's enough. Yeah, all my links and the Occult Rejects and the Element server, all that's in the bottom. I'm going to include Aeon Bytes, Miguel, all his stuff. His links will be in the bottom. And yeah, you can find Synthetic Psyop in the Element server, and even on social media. If you look at our tweets or our posts, you'll probably see him there too. Yeah. So yeah, definitely go check out Miguel's show, and my links are on the bottom again. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.